Hey folks, so I am out in the chicken coop, chicken run. The girls are having their afternoon snack. I just wanted to give everybody an update on Laverne. Unfortunately, Laverne did not make it. She passed away today, and it's really sad. I'm sad. We've lost 3 good hens this winter. Well, we lost one of them in the fall, and then another one in winter, and then, Laverne. So, Betty, Abigail, and Laverne are all gone, and it's sad. Just terribly sad. The good news is it does look like the rest of them are doing really, really awesome. The girls are scratching. Rex is out scratching. Rex still doesn't have his tail feathers. The girls will not let it heal enough for him to grow any, which really sucks because he looks funny. But, everybody survived winter pretty well, at least the ones that are still with us. That said, we do plan on letting Babs try to hatch some, but we do need to build a new coop for her if we're going to do that. We don't want her with the rest of the hens here, so we'll see what happens, though. We may end up buying some more chickens. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I know we're going to let Babs try and hatch some, but if we do try to get more, I don't know if we're going to get chicks or if we're just going to buy chickens. I don't know yet, so we'll have to figure that out. So here in the state of Maine, come springtime, we have heavy load limits, and they've just posted our road. So it looks like we won't be able to have any heavy loaded trucks come down our road until June 1st. So what that means is things like gravel, and if we're having, Connex or cabins delivered, anything that's really, really heavy, any excavator or like equipment like that, none of that stuff is allowed on the road from the day that they post till the date that they release it, which is June 1st. Now, what I've heard, and I don't know how true this is, but what I've heard is that this restriction is only good if the ground isn't frozen. So, for instance, like last night it froze, so this morning the road is nice and frozen. So is it possible that heavy loaded vehicles can make it down the road on days like today? Like I said, from what I've heard, that is legal, but once the road thaws out and it gets muddy and mushy, then that's no longer viable. So I don't know, but for us, it's not going to make much of a difference this year. Most of the gravel and things that we're going to be getting will be in the summertime. So just if you are looking to live in Maine and you're looking to live down a gravel road, it's something to keep in mind. So you folks have heard me talk a lot about living on an unmaintained road here in Northeast Maine. And one of the times of year that is absolutely the worst time of year for driving on these roads is during the late winter, early spring. Predominantly because, at least like in our case, we used our V-plow and we do plow this road, and it gets a nice hard pack. So during the winter time, driving on this road is great. You can kind of still see some of the hard pack here. Now, the problem is that come springtime, it starts to get warmer, it starts to melt, and then at night it freezes. And what happens is this entire road becomes a big, glaring, thick block of ice. And in prior videos, you've seen we use ash, we use sand, and we'll get out here and we will cover the road, the bad spots, usually hills, inclines and declines, with ash and sand. And that helps tremendously. But the other side of that is as this stuff here begins to become slush, it becomes a potential spot where you can get stuck. So you've got to be really cognizant of how you're driving through it. This section of the road actually looks pretty good right now. It is still morning time, so all of this has become frozen. But over on this side, you can see up in this area here where it froze as slush last night. And once that starts to warm up today, because it is getting into the 50s, that's going to become pretty treacherous trying to get through. So driving through this stuff is, you just got to be cautious, and you know, it helps if you know the terrain of the road, because you're going to start seeing the gravel start showing through. And the other thing you've got to, you know, be cautious about and be aware of is the frost heaves. Now the frost heaves will take this section of road and drop it, or it's gonna you know, make it rise up, and so you're gonna have some pretty gnarly speed bumps and potholes throughout the road as you're driving it through the springtime. And then of course, like any unmaintained road, you've always got the threat of mud. On our road, luckily the center of this section of road here typically is rock and is really isn't going to really give you any problems with mud. But once you start getting over here to these banks, that can get pretty bad. So when I talk about these slushy spots, this is a great example of one here, where the pack has been breaking up and melting, and it leaves these big ruts here where you're going to be driving through. It's hard on the tires as well. You know, a lot of this is sharp, really sharp ice. So what I have found as far as driving is I try to make sure that I don't drive in these ruts when it's frozen like this. I don't want the sidewall getting sliced open by a piece of ice. At least, and again, in my experience, what I have found is that if I drive on the center lane and then off to the side where the hard pack is, or at least away from this spot like this, I seem to have a much better time driving on the road. And there's a lot less risk to, you know, getting having your tire slashed by the ice. And at least on our road, this whole section here is all potential slush this afternoon once it warms up, all the way up that little incline there. So we've got to be careful coming up here so we don't get stuck or slide off the road or something of that nature. Going back to adding ash and sand, you know, if you look right here, this is a pretty steep incline here. This is one of two steep inclines we have on our unmaintained road. You can see it's very, I mean, you can almost see all of the road there. And it's like that because all the ash and sand that we added there has helped melt that part of the road. And you're going to see that wherever you put your, you know, use ash and sand. So it certainly helps not only when you add it, but throughout the springtime when the road is starting to thaw out. You can also see some spots way up here when we first come in. A lot of those spots are now down to gravel again. Compliments to the ash and sand we put down. Now, another thing to be conscious about and aware is that during this time of the year, your road is going to become a hell of a lot bumpier than it was during winter. You know, you get that nice, smooth, real nice, almost highway type of surface on it during the winter time. But during this time, with all the slush and the ruts and the frozen and the frozen gravel and the road exposed and the potholes, go slow. I mean, it gets bumpy and it's hard on your vehicle. So, you know, until the ground starts to thaw out and get a little softer, it's going to be a rough ride. Another problem area are going to be wherever you have a culvert. Now, I don't know how this phenomenon works, but what I can tell you is that, you know, right here we have a culvert, and both sides of that culvert will swell up, and you get a pretty gnarly speed bump here. We've got several of these culverts. Now, it doesn't happen on all of them, but the ones that it does happen on, you know that the culvert is there because it's almost as if you're driving on a double speed bump. Funny story, when we first got here, we had never even known that culverts do that in frost heave. I thought that our culverts were failing. Little did I know that that's the behavior of them during the spring breakup here, during the spring thaw. They just, the ground swells up and it just looks like the culvert's going to collapse. But as spring progresses, as the temperatures consistently stay warm and this ground, the road starts to warm up and thaw out, the ground will settle down and it'll become nice and flat again. Now, sometimes, as we saw over on our section of road at the culvert where we replaced last year, sometimes when that ground comes down, it won't be level again. And so until we replaced the culvert, we had to add gravel on top of the culvert to level the ground out, and kind of get rid of that hump. So you just have to be cautious, be aware that it happens at culverts. And if after spring, the ground still has some hump there, you can add some gravel, kind of level it out, and you'll be good to go till next season. Now, if your unmaintained road has a steep hill like ours does and has poor gravel or poor surface, you may end up in a situation where you get the runoff that comes down the road. And in our case, we get quite a bit of runoff on this section, and it carves a Grand Canyon through the road. So this whole area right in here is going to get pretty deep as all of that snow along the bank begins to melt. And now we're not going to do anything about it until the spring is done and the water has all stopped running, because whatever we put in there would just run out until it's done anyway. So it's going to make driving in this section of the road very difficult and challenging, and very bumpy. So yeah, it's just one of those things that you just have to deal with during this time of year. Now, the other thing I want to say, since we're standing here at the base of this incline, is that during this time of year, when you do have that glaze ice, now it doesn't really apply here because there's a lot of gravel showing, but when this is all glazed ice, you can still get up the hill, even if you don't have any ash or sand. Just remember that momentum is your friend. Luckily for us, we've got a nice flat straightaway that then leads into our hill. So it's not uncommon for us to get a little bit of speed and then try and hit this hill, head on, to pop up on top of the ridge there. So it helps if you have four-wheel drive, but it's not completely necessary. I've done it in our Jeep, which is front-wheel drive with the four-wheel drive off. And now I talked about this in another video. When we're plowing, we like to get some of the bank plowed as well. If you get in trouble, you can always get your tires onto the edge here, and that'll help you get some traction so you're getting up your hills as well. Now, living on an unmaintained road, depending on where you are, is an absolute blessing, especially like for us who wanted to have this isolation. It is so rewarding and wonderful and amazing, but living on these back roads like this, they do present challenges that you're going to have to overcome. Now, you might be fortunate enough to have neighbors who do a lot of the work for you, where you can pitch in. If that is the case, I highly suggest that you do at least, make the effort to do something, get involved with those who are doing the work on the road for all of the neighbors and all the landowners. You don't want to be the guy that just doesn't show any appreciation or doesn't get involved and just says, somebody else has it. You don't want to be that guy, so don't be that guy. get involved. Even if just a simple thank you once in a while definitely goes a long way. It costs money. It's wear and tear on our equipment, and it's just nice to know that the work that's being done by the neighbors who have come together to do the work is appreciated. So it's nice. But again, going back to the road, it does present challenges, and challenges during the springtime are going to they're going to test you, and you got to be prepared. Having ash and some sand certainly helps, and getting to know your road and the topography of the road, and whatever natural formations are in the road. Like for instance, we have some large rocks and stuff like that isn't going anywhere, and we know where they are. So getting to know your road is important too. So it'll just help as you traverse it and get down to your homestead. All those terrible potholes that you may not have been able to get to in the fall to fill, that did get filled during winter time, they definitely show their ugly heads, and it certainly, they didn't go anywhere, and they remind you that they're still there in the spring. Living on an unmaintained road can be so rewarding. Offers peace, quiet. You're away from the hustle and bustle of the main roads. In some cases, it'll give you access to some beautiful scenery, such as this marsher that we have by our cabin, and the woods near here, with the wildlife that we see and have around the property. It's one of those things that it's part of the journey out here for us. It's part of our life out here is our unmaintained road. And, yes, it does come with challenges. It does add a element of more work that needs to be done. But like I said, it's so well worth it. We wouldn't want to be anyplace else. And even though we do have to put our time, our resources, our money, together to help maintain the road, at the end of the day, when the dust settles and we get to look at views like this, when we get to be where we are, it's all worth it. It's worth every single moment of it. So, all right, folks, well, that'll do it for this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you folks on the next video.